Hello, good afternoon, everybody. This is Dave Lundahl. I thank everybody for joining in here on this really exciting topic on future packaging. It is based on a lot of research we've done, which I'll get into a little bit more, but looking at really this whole idea of the new trust economy and how it's impacting consumer change through the packaging materials and products that are offered. I'd like to give a shout out for some of the contributors for the research today. This is Julie Quanti, Marina Chernikov, and Mark Stevens. And I'm Dave Lundahl, CEO for Insights Now. If you're new to Insights Now, just a brief sort of summary of our company. We provide behavioral research insights and solutions working in the areas of marketing and messaging, brand positioning planning, and innovation and product development. Bringing together really trying to solve some of the largest challenges facing the consumer products industries based on the massive changes that we're seeing in consumer behavior today. And providing faster answers through these research techniques, we aim to improve your speed to market and success in market. If you're new to webinars now, and this tool you have, the way we tend to operate here is at the end of this session today, we'll have a question and answer period. And there's on your right-hand side of your screen, you should see an area where you can enter in questions as they come up during this whole session or later on when we're having the Q&A period. So we'll field those questions as they come in at the end and look forward to having some good dialogue there. So let's get started here. As a starters, back in April of this year, we provided a webinar and really showed this screen. This is that the food system, this is focusing on the food industry, food system today, trust among primary shoppers is not the greatest. We're finding that amongst regular primary shoppers and households, if you ask them, do you trust the food system today, you'll find that less than half agree. And there's a segment of consumers that we've been focusing on here the last few years called clean label enthusiasts. And if you ask these people, it's even greater. Fewer than 75% do not agree that they trust the food system. In fact, over half disagree with this type of statement. So if you look at these clean label enthusiasts, they are about 25% of all primary household shoppers in the U.S. In some regions like the Western region in the U.S., they're about 30%. They are proven lead indicators of future buying trends, as we're seeing a lot of this massive change going on today. And we have developed a behavioral community of about 1,000 clean label enthusiasts that are serving today as industry advocates through the research and the ways that we engage with them. So some of the research today is based on comparing clean label enthusiasts and non-clean label enthusiasts. You'll see this throughout the information we provided. And if you ask clean label enthusiasts about why are you interested in a clean label, you'll find mostly people are worried about their health. They distrust large government institutions and large food manufacturers. But basically, it's all based on fear and in some cases anger towards the industry, which are perceptions that we're hoping to change through the innovation and products and messaging that we're able to provide to sort of change things and find ways in which we can create value for companies that are trying to bring products to market. Now, today we're going to be focusing on packaging. So, like whereas in the past we've focused a lot on the idea of looking at ingredients and claims and products in terms of this idea of clean eating or clean sort of living. Today, we're going to delve into how does packaging sort of develop. So, what is really clean packaging? And so if you look, one of the questions that we asked in the survey that I'll get into here in a little bit talking about, but was really what are the types of packaging types that you regularly purchase? And you find that, for clean label enthusiasts and non-CLEs, plastic containers, cardboard paper, plastic film bags tend to be predominant. But when you get into looking at plastic film, you start seeing some differences amongst clean label enthusiasts and non-clean label enthusiasts. And you start seeing some other bigger differences in terms of glass, people not even buying things in bulk, in metal and styrofoam. So the question is, if you look at this sort of, and we're going to delve into this a lot more, looking at beverages in particular, separated from food and other ways. The questions we're going to be asking today is a lot about why. So what we did is we, in order to get into understanding these sort of purchasing trends, in May, we conducted an online survey and we included 195 clean label enthusiasts and 216 other primary shoppers who are non-CLEs. And both sets participated, complete a survey about their attitudes, their motivations, their behaviors related to food, beverage, and packaging. And so we're going to show really three parts of this research. First part was we'll be looking at packaging concerns amongst these primary shoppers. Part two is we're going to look at the behavioral impact of packaging materials and claims using some explicit testing we've conducted. And then the last, we'll do some behavioral work that we did in terms of we gave people trade-offs in different types of packaging and asked them to pick choices. So it's a choice exercise, which is also fairly informative. So let's get into part one here. So first, we found that 91% of clean label enthusiasts and 80% of non-CLEs have concerns about packaging for food and beverages. Okay. Further, on the right side on this chart here, you can see that 60% of clean label enthusiasts respond to avoiding purchases of foods and beverages products if they aren't certain about what the packaging is made of. And this is compared to 38% of other shoppers. Now, in addition, we asked some questions about why, and one of them was, if the packaging material of a product may not be safe for my health, would I? And as you may expect, very high percentage said they would avoid the specific product in that packaging material, versus avoiding much smaller percentages said they'd just avoid the brand entirely, or maybe just purchase the product right away. So it's more about the response is about the product itself, more so than the brand in terms of health. Health is a key piece. The second piece we delved into is looking at sustainable. So how packaging, and so we asked people, okay, well, how often, what do you do with, in terms of the types of, so food and beverage packaging, I often, and you see, fairly, about half in general, people will find that they have to throw away the packaging material, but a higher percentage of clean label enthusiasts tend to reuse it, recycle it, or compost it. Further, 63% of clean label enthusiasts would not purchase products if it is not sustainable, compared to 43% of non-CLEs. So clean label enthusiasts are on the spectrum where they are concerned about not only their health and wellness in terms of how packaging imparts that, but also are very concerned about sustainability issues in terms of the packaging. And you see sort of this trend continue when you ask them about do they support sustainable sort of initiatives. And so you see both clean label enthusiasts and non-CLEs will say, like, there's so much change has been going on in terms of supporting disposable, not using plastic shopping bags and eliminating those from stores. And you see, generally a pretty high support for both CLEs and non-CLEs. But when it comes to things such as would I use a reusable packaging surface such as Loop, which is fairly new, and another way to sort of deal with this issue of ongoing, you're seeing that CLEs are much more interested in this and open to this emerging sustainable type of an initiative. So the point is lead indicators, clean label enthusiasts, in terms of support sustainable initiatives, we believe this shows that these sort of initiatives for the future for sustainability are going to become a greater and bigger trend of the future. A third area beyond sustainability and health, we're finding that in terms of attitudes about packaging is this idea of unnecessary packaging. And what we found is that 51% of clean label enthusiasts agree with they would avoid purchasing products with too much packaging. And some of the comments is we find that is mostly about things about excessive, wasteful, bad for the environment. And whereas, non-clean label enthusiasts, interesting, about 35% agreed with this statement, and you find that the comments associated with it are slightly different. It's more about wastefulness, and it's something that's going to increase more costs. And so, because we're finding that non-clean label enthusiasts tend to have some more cost interests and concerns versus things that are about environmental and so on. So this difference between different sort of underlying reasons for people responding to avoiding purchasing products with too much packaging, too much excessive packaging. And the final piece of this research in part one that we delved into was to ask shoppers about the information they get from packaging, about the packaging materials and respective qualities. And what we found is that most shoppers, this is clean label enthusiasts and non-clean label enthusiasts, do not always get the packaging information they need to make informed choices. And this is further exacerbated by the fact that we found that only 40%, 43% of CLEs and 42%, about the same, non-CLEs, don't know what the numbers mean in terms of it's a number one for the type of plastic packaging. So they don't know what a number one PET means or number two HDPE means and so on and so forth. So obviously there's some opportunities for education to help people really make better informed choices with regard to the packaging materials and how this really addresses the key points, which is health, sustainability, and too much packaging materials. Now, this leads us into part two. And part two research is we took a different approach to try to address sort of gain some insights into the area of packaging. Instead of sort of explicitly asking questions to people that they respond to, we said, let's set up an experimental plan and let's use something called an implicit explicit test methodology to really understand what are the underlying drivers. And sort of this methodology is resulted in something completely new, a new behavioral metric that we're calling a clean packaging score. And this methodology is that we asked people, we created some context, and then we gave them a picture that had some sort of a blank picture of a type of packaging material and a claim. And in general, and then we asked them to simply respond okay or avoid, and we timed the response, how fast it took them to go okay or avoid within this context of a moment. Would you buy this product or not? Okay, or would you avoid it? And what we find is that if people are using a very slow response, they're having to think about it. That means they're using more of an explicit sort of a response. But if it's very fast, then either okay or avoid. It's a more guttural, fast response to this sort of methodology. So what we did experimentally, and then we created a 100-point score where a 0 means everybody would avoid it, 100 would be everybody would say okay, and things are weighted based on how fast. The faster the response, that means more that in this methodology we're able to determine that someone is using fast response thinking versus slow response thinking. We weight that to the fast, so the greater percentage of people that are going fast avoid, that will respond to a lower score, and the greater the percentage of people saying okay, using fast responses, that will weight towards a score towards 100. So we looked at 4 different types of moments: 2 for packaging, 2 for food, 2 for beverages, and for each we looked at a routine use at home versus an on-the-go for convenience. In addition, we provided a whole bunch of different pictures of different types of either food packages or beverage packages. And third, we had a number of claims: compostable, BPA-free, made from recycled materials, please recycle, or in some cases, in the experimental plan, we left it blank, so there was no claim. All right, so let's get into the responses here and see what we found. So on this 100-point score, remember 0 means everybody would avoid it, 100 means everybody would accept it, okay? We found that for food packaging materials, you see that styrofoam, egg cartons, plastic trays, plastic jars, lined paper containers tended to be scored lower by clean label enthusiasts than regular non-clean label enthusiasts. And we say, in general, jars, cardboard boxes, paper egg cartons, and aluminum cans for food tended to score the highest. And these others sort of for things that were either for concerns that consumers may have for their health or for sustainability or whatever, those types of materials tended to score lower at the top here. For beverages, we found that plastic coffee pods, foil juice packs, there were significant differences there for clean label enthusiasts, and in general, people scored those lower and had a lower behavioral response. And things like glass bottles, aluminum cans, plastic bottles, and plastic jugs in general scored higher, except for amongst clean label enthusiasts, you see some differences where they scored it lower. Now, when it came to claims, we found that there were significant differences in terms of clean label enthusiasts and non-CLEs with regard to compostable, please recycle, made from recycled, and BPA-free. So across the board, clean label enthusiasts showed that there was a higher change in explicit score amongst averaged over all these different types of materials for the types of scores we got. And when we looked at moments of use on the average in comparing the in-home versus on-the-go convenience moments of use, we found that clean packaging scores differed when shown materials that were perceived to be more convenient or less a fit with the moment of use. And we found fewer differences among CLEs and non-CLEs attributed to perhaps the relative differences in health, sustainability, or excessive packaging concerns. Now, we also, when someone responded okay or avoid, we followed up instantly with a question about the reasons for avoidance or the reasons for acceptance. And what we found is that very similar, it's like two sides of the coin, whether we ask someone to why do they accept or reject, we found that recyclable, compostable, not harmful for our health, and does not involve petroleum use in terms of the packaging materials itself. Those three really stood out for both clean label enthusiasts and in some cases for reasons for avoidance, also for non-recyclable compostable for non-clean label enthusiasts in addition. So anyway, so these sort of reasons show that health, sustainability are two really important reasons for the reasons which aligns with the part one research results. But this idea of petroleum use did come to be a factor, maybe in about 0.25% of CLEs, and in terms of reasons for acceptance, and about 14% of CLEs for reasons for avoidance. We also found it very interesting, further drilling down into just the avoidance behaviors. We found that avoidance behaviors amongst clean label enthusiasts tend to be reduced due to harmful or health concerns when the packaging expressed the claims compostable or BPA free. So you see, compare the differences when there was no claim versus when you had these claims. You see a reduction in the reason for avoiding something because of its harmful or its health. And last, in terms of the idea of expense, we found too expensive was cited more frequently as a reason for avoidance amongst clean label enthusiasts and non-clean label enthusiasts when the packaging had a compostable claim. And this suggests that CLEs also have some price sensitivities with regard to compostable claims. So beyond what we already know, that non-CLEs are more price sensitive, but it shows that CLEs have some price sensitivities as well. All right, so let's move on to part three. So part three, what we did is we provided some choices to consumers or to participants in our study to further understand the relative importance of various packaging trade-offs on their shopping trips and behaviors. So what we did is we gave them an exercise. And we asked each participant a series of two forced choices between combinations of convenience, freshness, recycling, compostable, plastic-free, or costs. And in giving these choices, what we found, very interesting results. First, if you look at the very top, sort of more convenient versus guaranteed freshness, we found that both CLEs and non-CLEs here, both only 19% of them were willing to trade away freshness for convenience. And then if you look at the second one from the top here, looking at plastic-free packaging versus guaranteed freshness, we found that only 30% of CLEs and 23% of non-CLEs were willing to trade away freshness for plastic-free. So obviously freshness in terms of what the packaging provides is the most important, which is something that's probably not, it makes a lot of intuitive sense. Further down this chart, you can see that only about 40% of clean label enthusiasts and non-clean label enthusiasts are willing to pay more for convenience. In addition, 76% of clean label enthusiasts are willing to pay more for recyclable or compostable benefits, compared to 59% of non-CLEs, which is really interesting. So both CLEs and non-CLEs, more than half, are willing to pay more for recyclable or compostable benefits. And finally, 52% of CLEs were willing to pay more for plastic-free products compared to 31% of non-CLEs. So very interesting results, different sort of a behavioral approach in looking at these forced choice trade-offs. All right, so let's sort of summarize what we've learned today. First of all, clean packaging is definitely an emerging major driver influencing U.S. food and beverage purchases. And based on the differences between clean label enthusiasts and non-clean label enthusiasts, given that we have found time and time again that CLEs are an important lead indicator of future behaviors in terms of market trends, we believe that these sort of clean packaging is going to become more and more important here into the future, beyond what it is even today. And this is sort of supported by the fact that if you look at food and beverage avoidance behaviors, 2 out of 3 clean label enthusiasts found that, avoidance behaviors are really, they express avoidance versus 1 out of 3 non-CLEs. And these are driven by the 3 things we talk about: unhealthy packaging concerns, and that's supported as a reason for avoidance in 8 of 10 CLEs and 6 of 10 non-CLEs. Unnecessary or too much packaging impacts avoidance in 1 out of 2 CLEs and 1 out of 3 non-CLEs. And non-sustainable packaging, that means you can't reuse it, can't recycle, compost it, impacts avoidances in 6 of 10 CLEs and 4 of 10 non-CLEs. So a major driver. The other point that we summarize, though, we find we really do need more education, and perhaps the labeling itself on packaging needs to be upgraded so that consumers do understand how the packaging sort of addresses their sustainability, their health concerns. And you see this supported by 1 in 10 of both CLE and non-CLE claim that they get enough information for them to make informed choices from the packaging materials themselves. And this lack of knowledge, in terms of the number designations, in terms of what is PET mean, and so on and so forth, there needs to be better sort of ways and more education ways in which people can really make informed choices here. Further, from the explicit testing, we found that packaging materials and claims, we found that they do significantly impact shopping behaviors based on these sort of implicit reactions that people have to various types of materials. That is a factor when people are in the moment of making buying choices. Packaging materials themselves, we found do impact CLE avoidance. more than non-CLE when perceived to be more harmful to health or non-sustainable. And you saw that with responses to, for instance, styrofoam egg cartons, plastic trays, plastic jars, lined paper containers for foods, and for the small little coffee pods, the foil juice packs, plastic jugs, plastic bottles, and aluminum cans for beverages. And with regard to packaging claims, we found that CLEs definitely there's a higher impact for these claims versus non-CLEs. In particular, compostable and BAP-free claims do the most to alleviate health concerns. And in addition to compostable claims increase avoidance amongst both CLE and non-CLE due to cost concerns. So they decrease avoidance. So that's a concern that people have in terms of increasing the cost. And last, for the trade-offs analysis, we find that some very interesting trade-offs that people will make in terms of the perceived packaging qualities, whereas neither CLE and non-CLE will trade away freshness or price for convenience per se. 3 out of 4 CLA shoppers will pay more for recyclable or compostable, and half will pay more for plastic-free packaging. All right, so with that, I hope you've enjoyed some of the various comments we've had or questions. And we're ready here for a Q&A time. Kind of sitting here for to address any sort of questions that anybody want to make here, and we'd be glad to address that. And you can do it privately to us, or you can just contact myself or anyone else at Insights Now if you would rather address your questions privately. So, any questions there? I know we have people here that are from the CPG industry, food. We got people here from beverages. We got people here that are attending in the packaging supplier area. We know some people that are more consultants in the natural products area. So a whole range of different folks. Anybody? It's like a lot of quiet. Okay, here we go. So what is a so one question here, you mentioned aluminum food cans, whereas in the US, most food cans are steel. What countries did this country represent? So this piece of research was US only, and the respondents were from US only. So we said metal, we meant, aluminum or, any of those other types. I think were all represented in it. But I think a lot of the responses could have been, I think, for instance, convenience. We saw some differences in cans and food for convenience that were lower, got much lower scores. We're believing some of that is just because, you would have to have some way of opening up these less convenient for on the go. Another question is that what's a consumer package firm to do with established packages? Well, this. So let me address the explicit test that we provided. So we're finding this idea of clean packaging and having a scoring system has all sorts of opportunities. So we now have a methodology where we can take a SKU, a brand. We can do some very interesting research to score things in a way that can help look at that sort of reaction that people are making to products. We can do this with specific types of consumers. It doesn't have to be clean label enthusiasts. It could be any target research group to really address this idea of packaging. We can do this in central product central location testing, so you can actually have people looking at packaging itself. So it has a lot of interesting opportunities. Another question's coming in is, did you ask about source material of packaging other than petroleum? And the answer is no. That's a really, really important question, such as recycled bottles, food packaging, or ocean waste. So the answer is no, but this is certainly something that we could easily address in additional research and to extend this a bit. Okay, any other questions? Well, super. Well, I thank everybody for attending this session. A little peek ahead. So next month we're going to be really delving into the area of functional ingredients for foods and beverages. We've got some new methods and techniques that are implicit or explicit to look at sort of the relationship between functional ingredients and their perceptions in terms of functional benefits. Really excited. We've been analyzing this data that we've got here recently, and it's going to be really great. So if this is an area that you're interested in or you want to share this, please do so. If you want to pass on the information on this one about packaging, realize that all our webinars now, events are recorded, as this is being recorded, and that is available on our website for you can download, or you can send this to other people to download as they may be interested. We also have a dozen or so other webinars up there that you can download from past sessions. So anyways, everybody have a great day. Again, thank you for attending, and we'll see you. Save the date for August the 8th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for Consumer Perceptions of Functional Ingredients in Foods and Beverages. Bye.